Hello, everyone. Today is Friday, January 28th, 2022. There is no arms and ammunition embargo against Haiti. This article is taken from Le Nouveliste. Prime Minister Ariel Henry, during the interministerial meeting organized by Canada last Friday, indicated that the restrictions imposed on the government for the acquisition of lethal equipment, weapons, and ammunition handicapped the PNH, that is, the Haitian National Police, in its fight against heavy armed gangs that do not suffer from any embargo. Several sources interviewed made the difference. There is no UN embargo, but restrictions from the USA and Canada, which show their willingness to help the PNH to strengthen its operational capacities. In the recent past, the Haitian state had acquired weapons of war. There is no UN embargo on the acquisition of arms and ammunition for Haiti, Beatrice Nibagura Binu, spokesperson, told Le Nouveliste Tuesday, January 25th, 2022. For the USA, there are restrictions going back to the coup of September 30th, 1991 to October 15th, 1994, against Jean-Bertrand Aristide. The American Congress had passed a law stipulating that the American government does not have the right to send neither weapons nor ammunition to Haiti without its authorization, Kenneth H. Meriton told a pool of journalists in his residence in Boudon Monday, January 24th, 2022. We don't have a 100% embargo, but it's difficult, continued the American diplomat, stressing that to do so will require endless administrative paperwork. It can take a long time, explained Kenneth H. Meriton, when discussing a possible alternative. There are, I'm sure, other partners in Haiti who don't have our limitations. And this is a good example of the difference between Russia and the United States. Mali, they needed some equipment, and the Russians got it to them within a day or two. It might have been helicopters. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something that was very important. I think it was helicopters. And they said that the difference between Russia and the United States was that if they needed something, they can get it right away. And this is very important when it comes to war or peacekeeping missions. If the Canadians are not warm to the idea of providing weapons and ammunition to the PNH, there is, however, not a firm and decided no in advance. Canada has extremely stringent arms export restrictions, so Canada is like the United States. These are extremely difficult questions, whether it concerns sales or donations. We navigate between our various international obligations and our internal obligations. Traditionally, Canada is not very warm to the idea of supplying weapons, said the Canadian ambassador Sébastien Carrier, visiting Le Nouveliste on Tuesday. So I wouldn't be surprised if Haiti looked for weapons elsewhere. And it says that they got some in the recent past. They didn't say from whom, and they didn't say what weapons they were. We never say no before studying the request and seeing what is possible. I examine all the requests that the Haitian government would like to make to me, indicated the Canadian diplomat, who evokes another need: armored vehicles to transport troops in hostile areas. The question of armor can be separated from the question of firearms. There is not necessarily a weapon on an armored vehicle. We are more in the logic of protecting troops, explained Sebastian Carrier, before mentioning a common concern at the level of the international community. Elections, but you can see from this that the United States, let's just say the West, the United States and Canada specifically, they're dragging their feet for some reason. They don't want to help Haiti provide security for its nation. They want Haiti to remain vulnerable and in limbo. Elections in the current security situation would not be viable. Nobody wants an election with a completely anemic turnout. Elections in which the population would not believe, said Mr. Carrier. Nor can we expect to have an ideal security situation with zero kidnappings, disappearance of gangs, etc. Is dreaming in color. What is the acceptable level of security for the holding of elections? I don't have the answer, said the diplomat, who says he agrees with the Prime Minister on the idea that security must be restored well before organizing the elections. To deal with better armed gangs using urban guerrilla techniques and not hesitating to resort to indiscriminate terrorism, our police urgently need equipment, materials, and training. The maintenance of the restrictions imposed on the Haitian government for the acquisition of lethal equipment considerably handicap the capacity for action and reaction of the police, who are sorely lacking in means of armaments, ammunition, protective equipment, armored vehicles, and others, said Prime Minister Henry. While terrorists and gangs are not affected by this embargo and manage to obtain large caliber weapons and ammunition in quantity, this gives them a superiority in terms of firepower compared to the police, said Ariel Henry, head of the CSPN, who issued a warning. I hope that your countries and organizations realize that we cannot expect spectacular results in terms of security if we do not manage to better equip our police and provide them with the necessary training and supervision to perform tasks for which it was not prepared, said Prime Minister Ariel Henry, stressing that insecurity is the main concern of Haitians. Today, the main concern of my compatriots is the insecurity and blind terrorism, which considerably disrupt everyday life, so mourning in families and isolate from the rest of the country. 4 departments out of 10 in the South, an area which was hit hard by the earthquake of August 14th, 2021, followed by a violent cyclone, he said. Excuse me. It is essential and urgent, continued Prime Minister Ariel Henry, to put an end to it and restore the authority of the state over the entire extent of the territory. It is a necessity if we want to achieve the objectives we have set ourselves for this interim period. The return to normal functioning of our democratic institutions, the handing over of power to elected officials as soon as possible, as prescribed in the agreement of September 11, 2021, argued Ariel Henry, believing that all this will be wishful thinking if citizens cannot freely go about their business, if political parties and candidates cannot campaign everywhere in the country without having to fear for their lives. The country recently purchased rifles from a third country. It was not from the United States, told the newspaper, a former minister familiar with the conduct of this file. The Americans had blocked this order of rifles on behalf of the FADH, that's the Armed Forces of Haiti, but the documents had to be redone. And these weapons were given to the National Police of Haiti, confided this former minister, who maintains that the Americans are quite fussy about orders for lethal equipment and surveillance by Haiti. Under Jovenel Moise, there was an order for surveillance equipment for $1 million. They could not be delivered, revealed this former minister. There are restrictions that must be navigated to help the police have the weapons, ammunition, and equipment to deal with the gangs. The government is working on this with some of its partners, said an Henry cabinet minister, on condition of anonymity. But one of the most important things, said a source, is confidence in the PNH, the guarantee that this equipment will not end up in the hands of gangs, she said. And you would think that with the United States and Canada dragging their feet with regard to Haiti arming itself and getting surveillance equipment, which the prime minister who was assassinated wasn't able to do. It wasn't delivered. That there wasn't a recent assassination of the head of state. Um, so let's look for something to happen in Haiti with regard to the country getting the materiel that it needs to protect itself, in particular to defeat the insurgency in the form of gangs.